All right, welcome back to the Classic Motorsports Garage. Today we are going to rebuild a brake caliper. Now this particular brake caliper is from a MG Midget. We're using it on an Austin-Healy Bugeye Sprite project that we're building. But the concept and the process of rebuilding a brake caliper is going to be just about the same on any car from the 50s all the way up to today. So when you're rebuilding a brake caliper, you're dealing with brake fluid, you're going to be using different cleansers, so not a bad idea to wear some rubber gloves and always wear eye protection. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is dislodge the pistons. So what happens in a car that's been sitting for a while is the pistons get stuck in the caliper, and the easiest way to get them out is with compressed air and basically just put them in motion. With compressed air, you're essentially replacing the fluid through the car's braking system with compressed air, which will move the calipers. You can use something like screw loose to soak them to get them to move if you have problems. Get yourself a rubber tipped air gun. The rubber will work better because it seals against the caliper, and there we've moved it already. You're going to need some kind of spacer in there to do this, and sometimes they come right out and sometimes it is very tough to do. On a caliper like the Sprite caliper that has the hole for the brake line to come in right above the piston, if you're very gentle you could do this. And we're moving that. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape here. So we'll remove the brake pads. This is kind of a crude system on this Sprite where it just has a couple of cotter pins, specially made cotter pins, but cotter pins nonetheless, that are holding the pads in. Oop, meant to do that. All right, this has a kind of a retainer for the pads, and at that point they will come right out. So once you take the pads out, to further move the pistons you'll need something to use as a spacer. You could use one brake pad, you could use the end of this, and we should be able to keep working these out. Once you get one side out, this will not work anymore, so you need to kind of go easy. So, and we've got it. All right, so there's one of the pistons out. And this other one I think we'll get by just tapping gently. And there's another piston out. So at this point, a little brake clean will make this a little nicer, clean things up. All right, the next thing we're going to want to do, once we get ourselves a little cleaned up, is get the seals out of the calipers. A little pick like this works nicely. So now you have the seals out of the caliper. So the next question is, do you want to split the caliper? This two bolts hold the caliper halves together. There's O-rings between these two halves. Generally, unless you have a leak, it's best to leave well enough alone, and I don't normally split the caliper and replace those O-rings. So it's not terribly complicated, it's just more than likely they'll never get the thing to stop leaking. All right, one final thing you want to do before you clean the caliper is to remove the bleeder screw. If that comes off tough, you can use a little bit of screw loose, and you want to make sure this channel is clear, and you want to make sure that's cleaned up, because that's how you bleed the brake when you're all done. So once we have the caliper stripped, you can clean it. This new CRC parts cleaner and degreaser works well, but we're going to cheat and put it in our ultrasonic cleaner, which works really well. All right, so this is what the caliper looks like after it comes out of the ultrasonic cleaner. This is a bare steel caliper. You can get it plated. Of course, that would mean splitting it, or we just use a high heat paint when we do them since they're hidden behind the wheels anyway. We also put the pistons in the ultrasonic cleaner to clean them, but the surface against the seal on the pistons needs to be perfectly clean and free of rust or any blemishes. If you've got rust pits or anything like that on these pistons, you cannot reuse them. They need to be perfectly clean to give you a good seal. Fortunately, these pistons are in quite good condition. This car hasn't been off the road that long, and we'll just take a little bit of extra fine 3 or 4 0 steel wool and clean them up. Yes, depending on the car, you can buy an entire caliper assembly, you can buy new pistons. It's just a matter of what car you're dealing with, how expensive the parts are, and what you want to do. But I mean, you can rebuild brake calipers in about an hour, and a lot of times the original stuff is better than some of the stuff available today. You know, again, depending on the car, calipers can cost anywhere from $50 a piece to $300 or $400 a piece. So that you need to kind of consider how difficult the job is, and how original you want your car to be, and what prices are for the different parts for these cars. All right, we want to keep our work area clean. Steel wool dust is not what you want to get down into your calipers. You probably should do this in a different location than you're doing the rebuilding, but we're trying to keep things all right in front of you here. You've got our pistons clean. We've got our caliper clean. We'll start to put the seals in. Moss includes it looks like a white grease or a Vaseline type stuff, but you could use that, or I generally just use brake fluid. The main thing is you do not put a caliper together dry. You need to lubricate everything. You need to have lubrication between these seals and these pistons when this goes back together. Lubricate up your pistons, lubricate up your seals. And then you need to work your seals back in your calipers. Depending on the caliper, this can either be fairly simple or a pain in the arse, but you'll be able to get them in at some point. These are a little bit difficult than a Spitfire or a Lotus Elan caliper that I'm more used to. All right, we've got these seals into the calipers, and we're going to lubricate the pistons a little bit, and then you just work the pistons in as evenly as you can. And as you can see, we gently push that in, and this piston is back into position. And yes, I know that's not the right way to use this tool, but I'm being gentle and it's working. Again, lubricate the piston nicely, especially down at the end where it's going to hit the seal first. And you don't want to damage the seal, and you don't want to knock the seal out of position. All right, again, we've got it. All right, on this project, the rest of these parts all came from Moss Motors, and they also sell some great brake pads. But on this project, this is going to be a kind of a hot rod hooligan Sprite, so we're going to use these Porterfield R4S pads because we really like the way they are for track days, autocross use, and tours, you know, kind of hot driving on tours. So we can place the pads in. The shims go behind the pads. And this is a pad retainer that this particular car uses. At this point, as long as you shield your pads, you can paint your caliper. I usually wait till the end to paint the caliper because brake fluid will ruin any paint. So any traces of brake fluid that get on your fresh paint will ruin the look of your caliper. This high temp Pour 15 paint, it works pretty nice on calipers. And again, if you want to get it plated, that's okay too. All right, as you can see, fairly simple, inexpensive. We've now got a finished caliper. We've got all kinds of stories like this on our website, classicmotorsports.com. And please subscribe to our channel because we've got videos like this coming out every week.
Support brands that support classic motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. Visit crcindustries.com to learn more.